All right, we are taking an in-depth look at mental health care and racial inequality here in America. A new book titled Madness, Race, and Insanity in the Jim Crow Asylum centers around the 93-year-old history of Crownsville State Hospital in Maryland.
The hospital opened in 1911. It was one of the last segregated asylums in the United States. Crownsville closed 20 years ago, but it was notorious for its severe mishandling and mistreatment of patients. Joining us now is the author, and of course you know her, NBC News correspondent Antonia Hilton. Antonia, congratulations on this book. First of all, it is so well researched. Tell us a little bit more about why you chose this particular part of history to write about and what it can teach us about what's going on today.
Yeah, at first it was a personal adventure, and really it came from a longing because I grew up in a very big family. We were all very close. But the one topic that we really struggled to discuss was mental health and mental well-being. And that's because we had some elders in our family who had really struggled and suffered, and no one knew how to talk about it. There was a lot of shame and stigma, so we just kind of pushed it to the side. And so when I was in college at Harvard, I decided, you know what, I'm going to study this and try to learn what has mental health care been like for Black Americans. What I found was Crownsville, this place that closed in 2004. I mean, within our lifetimes. Right. You don't think about history as being so close, right? And what I found was this place that was so representative of all of America's battles over freedom and civil rights and what it means to live up to our promises. And all of that affected the mental health care system. And I think right now a lot of people want to talk about self-care. They want to talk about therapy. It's a little less taboo than it used to be, but we don't always know our history. And so my hope is that this book helps people understand why things are the way they are now.
And how past, in some cases, prologue, right? I mean, we're still seeing so many discrepancies when it comes to mental health care, especially for Black Americans. Before I even move on, I have to say I'm so proud of you. Congratulations. To imagine you doing this as a Harvard freshman and looking at you doing this now, it is just a labor of love. And for you to do this is your day, Antonia. This is your day. So when we talk about this project specifically, one thing that fascinated me was that the first patients actually built that hospital. What did it mean to rent out patients for their labor?
This hospital was constructed by its own patients, and you should know that it is the only hospital that forced its patients to do that in the state of Maryland, and from my research, likely in the entire United States. And that was because they were Black. And in the years after emancipation, state leaders didn't really want to pay for mental health care for Black people. So they said, okay, well, we need to build something, but basically we're going to make them do it themselves. And so that raises a lot of questions, right? How a group of people could be seen as so sick that they need to be locked up, but so healthy that they have built buildings that are still standing in Maryland to this day. And I think that tells you a lot about the battle for Black Americans to get access to good health care, to be seen, and to be heard. And what you see partway through the story is that this group of heroes, really, these nurses and doctors, arrive in the 50s and 60s around integration, and they start to change the culture and really do everything they can day in and day out to save patients' lives. So while there's that difficult history and the racism and the sadness, there is also that inspiration and these people that remind you it's not rocket science. You can show up and do good for others every single day.
Yeah, absolutely. You also mentioned there is actually a connection with Henrietta Lacks, who a lot of people know. Her story was portrayed in a film. Tell us about that story and connection.
That's right. So for anyone who's not familiar, Henrietta Lacks was a woman living in Baltimore who had her cervical cancer cells taken by doctors at Johns Hopkins, and those cells turned out to be immortal, invaluable. They've been turned into vaccines and billion-dollar drugs. And in many ways, her family feels like they were used by science. They weren't compensated for very long. They weren't even told what happened to her. But then her daughter gets sent to Crownsville and is also subjected to experimentation there. And so fewer people know about her daughter, Elsie Lacks, who was at this hospital. But it shows you that it's not just one story like Henrietta's story, or often people talk about the Tuskegee syphilis story too, right? It starts to tell you maybe there were a lot of cases like this in communities of color all over the United States.
Entire groups of people treated this way.
Which also explains so much of the mistrust, right, that a lot of Black Americans still have when it comes to their care and the need for them to self-advocate in medical spaces. Antonia Hilton, we are so proud of you. I mean, just beautiful, brilliant, talented, and now an author. Congratulations.
And Madness is out tomorrow?
It is out tomorrow. You can pre-order it right now everywhere where you can get books.
We love it. Thank you so much, Antonia, for coming on and chatting about this. We appreciate you.